I think my friends just pushed a tree over. Wow.
Hi everyone, welcome to my new show, the Mystic Gateway podcast. First of all, I just want to say thank you so much for the amazing responses we're getting, that I'm getting from the shows that we've done already. I'm quite blown away with all the subscribers and the views and the amazing comments. My intention with doing this is really to, talk about the taboo and the things that are often talked about, or if they are, there is almost an element of ridicule, and we want to eliminate that because we're coming into a whole new era of disclosure of what's true, of what's real, and it incorporates all manner of realities, people's experiences. And without further ado, I couldn't think of a better person to talk about today's topic, the role of Sasquatch in disclosure. I'd like to introduce you to Mike Paterson. Welcome to the show, Mike. Good to see you.
Thanks, Craig. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, I remember years ago, my dad sent me some of your older recordings, and it just blew my mind, like the level of vocalizations you're getting, and also the journey that you're documenting on your channel. But before we get into that, why don't you just sort of tell people who you are, kind of an overview of what's happened with you and how it all started, and where and how.
I didn't go through life like most people, basically getting a career and, just going through school and following, I dropped out early, right? And I've always been defiant in my existence of authority in this system, from basically day one, I think. And so I kind of took the hard knocks road, which, it's okay. I'm fine with that. It doesn't do great financially, but I'm managing, so I'm grateful for everything I get. But so at one point I took up photography, taught myself photography, right? And I was taking some time off, or in my time off from work, I go into the woods. And I had no idea, nothing on my mind about Sasquatch. This is back in 2007. I started visiting the woods and looking for photo opportunities, and I bought some good gear, and I think pretty confident I was being watched. And I think pretty confident is, again, that they liked how I interacted with nature, and then suddenly I get this epiphany to start looking for Sasquatch. And, I'm in Ontario, Canada, and I had no idea anything like that was here. I always thought one had to go to the West Coast, to BC or something to, have any remote chance of an encounter sort of thing. I was always open to it, open to the concept of their existence. I've never been closed-minded. I've had a lot of things happen in my life growing up of a spiritual aspect, from another realm. Things periodically happen that show you that there is more to this world than, what we've been led to believe, right? So, I started looking into Sasquatch, and I had things happen literally right away. First time I went out, second time, third time, it happened right away, which is again, I think that supports that they had. It wasn't just me. I think they had some input into looking for them, and they came into my life right away, and started showing their presence, and I started having some mind-blowing stuff happen. So. But basically, other than
It's
that,
amazing.
I'm just some normal guy, really, with an open mind, and I'm just looking for answers, right?
Of course, aren't we all? It's just I find your tone authentic, and which is interesting because it's one of the most how can I word it, extravagant. Because I am really really interested in that topic. The idea of these, I don't like it when people call them beasts. I've watched a number of documentaries, and in fact, I think I've watched them all on Amazon Prime and stuff. And they have this concept that they're animals and they're just beasts. And I even watched one though where they wanted to go out to hunt them, and I was just like, "What is this?" These amazing mystical. I mean, we class them as human. I mean, you've developed a relationship with them, right?
Yeah, yeah. Spent the last. I was invited to investigate a property back in 2012, and Dwayne,
Yeah.
Dwayne, the property owner. Um, After interviewing him at his home, I was invited out to the family cottage, and at that point I'd had about 4+ years of experience. So I think that was part of it too. I think they waited till I was ready, that I had enough experiences, so I didn't go into that cold, right? It was like I kind of knew what I was doing to a certain level. Still didn't really understand that they had abilities yet, even though I had experienced them almost right away. My uh, second encounter incident, a week after the close vocal encounter I had, that moment that changed my life. The next week, I had my first high strangeness incident, right, where I got basically sent away. So I had missing time there. And and then another incident, I think might have been 2009, middle of the week, late at night, snow on the ground in this same area, and it was like a full moon that night, so it didn't even need flashlights. Could see everything, no problem, right? And I'm checking out this trackway crossing this main trail that we're on, trying to see what these tracks were, if they were deer or maybe Sasquatch, I don't know. And then suddenly the snow was a bit deep, so I couldn't see any toes or anything, right? So I'm trying to figure this out. And suddenly there's bipedal footsteps crunching through the snow right beside us, just plain as day right there. And there's no visual. And, I'm freaking out. Like, what the hell's going on here? So, they were showing me their abilities early on, basically, right?
Wow. So just to be clear, the footsteps were, or the footprints were already there, or they were happening in real time.
Um,
As in, like, yeah, sorry, go on.
the that incident where I heard the footprints, there was no footprints, there was no visual, there was no footprints being made. It was crunching through the snow in another dimension.
Oh,
Um, with Dwayne,
okay.
like the situation after getting invited to Dwayne's, you know, and like I said, I knew from day one that they had stuff going on, right? I was shown right away.
Mhm.
And at this point now, it's so well developed, it's insanely developed. And last visit, first snow on the ground, we're outside looking for prints, no prints. Oh, now we got one. They appear in real time. They haven't let us see them make them,
Right.
but I could scan an area, turn my head, look back, and suddenly now there's a footprint, literally just a few seconds later. So this is common. So they do this often, and multiple family members. The biggest one being back in 2015, his foot was 20 by 8 inches, and he's put, as of, is it last year or the winter before? I can't remember. Um, he's put an inch of growth over the last, I guess, decade plus.
Wow.
He's put an inch of growth on his foot. So he's at 21 inches. I don't remember if there was any more on the width, and he's roughly about 12 feet tall. And
Wow.
Neff, I've documented about, I think about 6.5 inches, give or take. Might be a little, might be 6 to 6.5 inches of growth on his foot. Sometimes it's a little difficult to tell with the snow because these are all documented in snow, right? So um, uh, over basically a dozen years, with different sizes along the way. I don't think anybody else has done that. I think this is the only situation that has documented that much growth on the foot of a Sasquatch, right? So,
Mm, mm. Wow. So, what was just did it start gently with you, like?
yeah, they, they're a bit uninhibited. They basically scare the hell out of anybody who's not ready for this stuff, right?
Right.
I wouldn't go into this with a weak heart. You might have a heart attack, right? Um, they might vocalize something loud and that would scare the crap out of most humans, but
Mhm.
they're just having fun.
Right.
I think that they love to mess with us. Not I think they love to mess with us
Mhm.
because this is ongoing all the time with their humor. And but they did basically, it's like a baby step process to
Yeah.
developing this, their choice, right? All you can really do is show up, and it's whatever they want to give. And they're constantly stretching your mind, doing things. Like Dwayne and I have this motto: always something new, always something new, and it would be like that every visit. They would always do something different. Maybe that's because we put that intention there. I don't know, but um, I think that's pretty common with a lot of people that they're always doing things that there's a lot of things that are repeated, but there might be a little twist in something that makes it a little different, right? But it's constant that way, and with the vocals, um, like I remember recording them. I think the very first night, but I didn't hear it in real time. I just had an audio recorder running outside, right? So I record audio every visit all night long. I put audio. This is my
Yeah.
best tool for learning, and it was 8 months, beginning of May 2013. So we'd been there for basically every weekend, I think, for about 8 months. And then let, that's when he let his voice really be heard,
Wow.
the first time, very beginning of May, and like May 1st, I think it was 2013. and absolutely mind blowing, to hear their voice. And to this day, it's one of I never get tired of seeing the prints. I never get tired of hearing their voice. I just love the sound and the visual of those prints. And the last several visits, I've I've recorded Neff at the end of the night. Just he's not being very loud, but it's him. It's his voice, right? Short too. They are a few words. You know, um, so basically, 2013 was the big year of the vocals like that, and I had at one point I'm pretty sure it was 9 consecutive visits of direct verbal communication with Neff. There might have been another one in there too. One visit when I showed up, there's snow on the ground and a 17-inch print shows up, 16 or 17-inch print. As I'm unloading my car and bringing stuff into the cottage, I come back, bring some stuff in. I just get there, bring stuff in. I come back out, and suddenly there's an adult footprint, right? And then it was that night. I remember there was a vocalization, and I think I said something like, "I miss you, my friend," and I get this long, drawn out, growly kind of vocal, and at one point, like I think I'm talking to Neff, and he says no, So I think it was the one that left that bigger footprint on arrival. I think that's whose voice that was. So, but Neff was there too. It's multiple family members, right? And it's from the children to the adults and everything in between.
Because I've heard some female ones in there as well, right? And there's quite a stark difference between the male and female. It's quite noticeable as well. Something I just thought is you're referring to Neff. Some people may not know the level of kind of communication that you've had. You've exchanged names, right? And how did they go about telling you, or certainly Neff, how did they go about telling you his name?
When we first started, because of his antics, we ended up calling him Mr. Funny, right? So for the longest time, it was Mr. Funny, and I would pat my chest and say my name because I knew he was listening. I knew they were listening and watching. It was obvious, so I just kept doing that and saying my name and saying it slowly. Even though it's a short word, Mike. I would just show him how to form it with his mouth. Like m m m. I would do that,
Mm.
and then one day he spoke close to the audio recorder and he said, Mike, I think in this order, I think he said Mike Dwayne Nefatia. So
Wow.
so when I played back, it's like, holy shit, we got his name, you know?
Wow.
So yeah, his full name's Nefatia, and we call him Neff for short, right? And you know, his family does too, basically, right?
Mm. Right. Yeah, yeah. So I just want to tell people I did my show I did with a guy called Justin Abraham, and we just alluded at the end because I've had some nothing quite like what you're experiencing here, but I'd love to get your take on things. So 2024, so that's last year. I went to the Truth Conference, Aaron and Tyler's conference in Grafton, Illinois. And this was my first time in the States. Didn't know what I was doing, and all these faces that I knew from social media, I was now meeting them in person. It was a wonderful experience. And one night, or the first night actually, a friend comes up and says, "Do you want to go into the woods and meet the Sasquatch?" I was like, "Sorry, what?" Like I had no idea. Like I had no idea there was anything there. They said, "Oh yeah, there's some here. Do you want to come with?" And I was like, "Absolutely, I do." So a group of us went into the woods and stuff, and kind of like split up into two groups. There was a group who was sort of on the outskirts, just sort of being quiet, listening to what was happening. Another kind of went in. So I went with the group that went in. We in the conference like that, there's a lot of people who they're intuitives, and they were tapping in and they were having kind of like conscious connection. And they said, yeah, we can see them talking to us and things like this. And I'm like, okay, all right. And cutting a long story short, I mean, there was loads to it than that. On another night, I went up. Just a couple of us went up. I was like obsessed. I was like, I want to, I want to experience this. And everyone, it seems a thing where people start with tree knocking, right? Have you ever tried tree knocking? Has that ever been a thing for you?
Oh, when I started in this, I was doing, what everybody basically does.
Yeah, right.
Everybody does that, I think,
Yeah,
going
yeah.
into
Okay,
this, right?
okay. I don't feel
Yeah.
too stupid now then.
No, I'm yelling like an idiot and banging on trees and yeah.
Yeah, good. Well, like I say, I really like it was so small, but it really like touched me because we were engaged, and a friend of mine again was tapping and saying, I can feel some over there, I can feel some over there. Like we're surrounded right now. They're very interested in us, and I'm like, this is amazing. So what I did, I went on a tree and I just did a like a rhythm. I mean, I'm a drummer, so I just did something like dun 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 dun, something like that. Straight away from in the trees came. I was like, what? You know what I mean? Like that's not an accident. Um, so that was fantastic. But then we started hearing really loud owl hoots, but it was really loud. And I was sort of like, that owl must be huge. One of my friends said, oh, no, that's them. That's them. They're communicating to us. Have you ever had that where they will mimic kind of wildlife sounds?
I learned, well, both Dwayne and I were sitting in the living room one day at his cottage, sunny Saturday afternoon, and suddenly we get the loudest wolf howl. Right, it's like right
Oh,
outside the cottage wall,
mm,
and it's so loud inside. We were sitting there stunned. We knew it was them, right? It's
mm,
like
mm,
no wolf is going to come up and howl right outside the cottage wall there. It
yeah.
just doesn't happen. It was them, right?
Mm,
And I've since actually recorded a similar sound here at home in the backyard. That I remember one night I put my audio out. I got woods behind me here. I put my audio out, and it's a fantastic recording. It's like pristine, so just a beautiful, clean recording.
mm,
And it sounds canine, but I remember saying, hey, I'd love to hear your sounds. I'd love to hear your voice. I always do that, right, when I'm out there.
mm,
But
mm,
this happened, I think it was about 4 o'clock in the morning, and then on playback, and it's just very odd because I know the situation here, right? It's very out of place to get this type of call right where I did, in the backyard.
mm.
And like I said, very similar to, what we experienced at Dwayne's. And I've recorded them also, their howls and moans among the coyotes when, they get them
Right.
going, right? They'll get the coyotes going. And
Yeah.
and I have heard owl sounds from them. So yeah, I've heard some mimicking and
Right.
and of course they would, right? And actually, the very first night that um, I maybe I don't know if it was first night or it might have been where I stayed in my tent on Dwayne's property. He wasn't there, like I had been given permission to go whenever I wanted, back in the beginning, right? And pitch a
Mm,
tent. I had some
mm,
other guy with me in that, and um, so, I had a lot of fear back then. I had a lot of fear of going into the dark woods by myself,
mm,
but I did. And I remember the other guy told him, come up to the tent with me. There's a bit of a hill there, right?
mm,
And I had set up audio right outside my tent. Um, so he went, it was pretty chilly. So he went back down to his vehicle once I crawled into my tent. I can hear him walking away, and I have it recorded. You hear his footsteps going down the hill back to his car. He fires up his vehicle
mm.
to, warm up, right? His windows are up. And then it was just a few minutes. I get the loudest barred owl type call. And it sounded
Wow.
like it was right outside my tent wall. and I damn near had a heart attack. And then very shortly after, I get this weird kind of chattering. It's like, what the hell is that? I don't think it was any owl, and it's like right outside my tent wall, and I'm not moving a muscle. My heart is pounding so hard. It's like, I'm trying to calm it down because I think I'm going to have a heart attack, right? And then on the audio, I didn't hear this in real time when it happened, just because I was, what was going on. But there's a big crack. You hear a big tree limb break, and
Right.
it's laying on the ground right outside my tent in the morning. And you can see right where it was busted, and it happened right beside the microphones.
Wow.
So this big tree limb break happens, and if it was natural, it would have made a huge sound hitting the forest floor.
Yeah.
No sound. It's
It was
put
just
down by
placed
a
there.
hand. Yeah,
Mm.
placed down by a hand, and yeah. So I think they were responsible for that, owl call. It was perfect barred owl call though, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It was like a scream type call, and very extremely loud. And so
Yeah.
that was basically my introduction to Neff's family that way, right? And in the morning, I remember I found a pile of human looking crap about 30 feet from my tent, and
Wow.
I gathered it. I picked it up, and I put it on ice. I think put it in a plastic bag, put it in ice, and I froze it, and I left it in the freezer. And then at one point, this is way back when, I'm looking for DNA and stuff, right? And I remember I reached out to Melba Ketchum, and she was willing to do some analysis. She told me it's basically the worst thing that you can try to get DNA from, but I went through the process anyways. I spent $200 out of my own pocket to
Mhm.
buy a cooler, the ice packs, drive it across the border into the US to ship it so I could get it overnight, so it wouldn't be sitting in customs, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And I remember when I was in line there, and the guy ahead of me, customs guys comes out checking the guy's car, pops his trunk. Right when he did that, I'm like, oh shit, he's going to do that to me. And, look in the cooler, and what's that? Well, it's a pile of Sasquatch crap, right? But that didn't happen, thankfully. So,
Right, right.
but it was, yeah, it's pretty funny.
I just want to explore a couple of things before we go into somewhere else. I want to take it. So in my story, looking at the owl hoots, what was really interesting was we'd had this communication, and as a side note, a friend, because at the Journey to Truth conference they always have a fire, after they have the conference during the day, then at night everyone gathers around a fire, chats, and that's like a lot of magic happens at that time. It's amazing. But a friend called Sherry Divband, I don't know if you know who she is. She, I think, in a peripheral vision, saw one run between cabins. Like, it was just like, what was that? And when she looked, there was nothing there, but she saw it. So they were around, and I think it's the last night. There was four of us stood around, and I was one of them. We were kind of thinking, the last night, should we go up? And we were thinking, no, I don't know, should we? Shouldn't we? Because it's the last night, should we stay here with everyone? And as we were talking about that, bear in mind the trees were about a 5-10 minute walk away from where the cabins were. We were stood by the cabins, and in the trees within the cabins there is this almighty owl hoot again, right in the middle of where we were. And we just looked at each other and went, yep, that, like we're being told, go up, And something that I came away with from all this was that night is I came away, and the only way I can describe it, I feel like they communicated to me somehow, and they showed me that, and please correct me if you don't see this, please say, but they kind of showed me, and just had this understanding that they use the frequency of trees in order to like almost like a portal, like to travel. And I just came away with this knowledge, like, why do I know this? Why, like, it didn't even enter my head. And like, the reason why they're often associated within trees is because they actually use, because trees have a frequency, they have an energy, right? And they can utilize that. Now, I don't know how woo you want to get with this, but I mean, does that resonate?
Oh yeah, yeah. I could see that. Like I've never been told that myself or given that download. It sounds like you were basically given a download, right?
Right, right.
But 100% I could see that. They love the trees, right?
Mm,
So
mm.
yeah, that it makes complete sense.
Yeah.
I fully agree with that.
Oh, that's good. 'Cause I've always wanted to ask you, but I thought let's do it publicly. Because I mean, the thing is with these creatures, beings, people, whatever, I prefer people. I think they are people. I
They
think
are
they
people.
are people. Good, we'll stick with that. Um, they have an interdimensionality about them. As you said, they can create footprints like without physically manifesting, and I think this answers the question why they're so elusive. Because everyone, people will go out on whole hunts, and they'll set up, and I've wasted hours of my life watching the worst documentaries where nothing happens, um, and I think we need to discuss this to kind of understand, and I think this is what you're bringing in your videos and on your social media and stuff. That we can't discuss this without discussing the interdimensionality of it. That they're there, but you can't see them with your physical eyes, right? Is that your experience?
Oh, there's no walls with them. So, like Dwayne and I got invited to investigate that property. I didn't know him before that, right? Never met him in my life. So, we've been at it ever since. So basically 2012. There was a little short period, about 15 months, where, there was trouble going on because of trespassing and stalking and harassment and, all kinds of. When you start putting out the real stuff, oh, it gets nasty,
Right.
with character assassination and all that. But
Hmm.
but anyways, besides that, we've had activity on 100% of the visits since day one.
Wow.
They're indoors with us every visit, every visit.
Right.
So, like sometimes I'll be putting on my shoes to go outside, and suddenly there's activity starts happening indoors, but I'm going outside to, see if we can stir up some activity, right? But if we tend to have snow on the ground, we go outside to look for prints, right? And we're having prints appear right beside us in real time. There's physical contact many times. Both it, when it first started happening, the very first time I was given physical contact, like a pat in the head kind of thing, or touched on top of the head. I had my video camera running because there was activity going on, right? So I flipped my video camera on, and you, it captures my reaction. I even asked Dwayne, "Did you just touch me on top of the head?" And he goes, "From here?" Because he's nowhere near me, right? But
Mm.
it messes with your mind. So
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
asking a
yeah.
stupid question, knowing he's over there when it's impossible for him to, do that, right? And we would question each other over the years, and that I've gotten very used to their activity and how they interact with us and that. But uh, yeah, the physical contact, and then it was only happening outside. And then one day I said, you guys, whenever you do, like touch me, it's always outside. Can you do it indoors? That night they did it indoors for the first time. So I've even had my foot grabbed under the table when I'm sitting at the chair, in the kitchen. That's happened a few times, right? Um, it just, it's like, how the hell you guys do that, right? It's,
Mm,
they're not crawling under the table. It's, I don't know. Or a time I'm sitting in my vehicle doing a battery change on my audio recorder. I'm running microphones through my sunroof, right? So I
mm.
come out, I'm changing the batteries to make sure I don't, it doesn't go dead on me. And I hear a marble hit the window. Um, I look and it's on my passenger floor. It was like, that wasn't outside, that was inside. And then as I'm getting that, suddenly I have this little uh, change thing in the console, boom, a marble hits right, lands right in that, as I'm getting the
Wow.
other marble, basically, right? Um, they're showing me that we're in the vehicle. I've actually captured a vocal in the vehicle. Dwayne and I driving a back road, and I had a dash cam going with the audio recording, and you hear one of them vocalize. I think a Ninyan, young teenage male in the family, and he's a big part of the interactions at this point. He has been for quite some time, right? I've been measuring his foot as well, and I think he's only probably about 15 years old, but he's a big boy. I think he's probably pushing 7 feet, close to it at this point, right? By judging by his foot size, right? So, but my point being is they're definitely interdimensional, however you want to call that. There are no walls. They can go wherever they want. Their understanding of consciousness is just absolutely astounding. You can't even begin to understand how deep that goes, right? So they have a lot to share that they could help humans with. Those guys, they got some game, man. I'm telling you.
That's a really good point, and to where kind of the point of doing this is that I think we messaged I messaged you once or twice recently, just asking questions and things, and we disclosure, and I think everyone's looking up in the sky for lights in the sky, and I think sometimes we miss what's already here, right? That there are things happening here all around us all the time. We don't see it, we don't notice it because we're not shown how to notice it. And I think it's time that these things in other realms are wanting to make contact with us. Would you agree with that? That they want this contact with you, and they want to be known. They want us to understand them. And do you think this plays a role in the broader of what we call disclosure of which is basically what's real, what's going on, what's available to us?
They are revealing their existence. I
Mm.
had an experience with them back in 2013. They basically told me that soon your people will know. And look, I've seen this subject change so much since 2013, especially since Neff came into the picture. He's been a big part of really opening the door to their abilities and, for people to comprehend that, right? Before that, anybody who spoke about that was basically either labeled a hoaxer or delusional or just ridiculed. So they didn't talk about it, right? So since Neff came into the picture and obviously myself putting this stuff out there and standing firm against all the bullshit that comes with that, it's the subject has progressed immensely, and it's really awesome to see so many people now talking about Sasquatch and their interdimensional nature. And
Right.
they, there is a UFO connection to this. There has to be because of their level of consciousness, right? There has to be.
Right.
For all we know, they're driving some of these ships. I don't know. But I had an incident about a year ago, just over a year ago, at um, a gentleman I met. He's former OPP, Ontario Provincial Police, and he basically he quit the force and he did a 180, and he's diving down rabbit holes, and he's got such a good grasp of reality at this point, our true nature of reality. And so he's really deeply involved in that. But I got invited out to his cabin out in a place called Lost Channel. It's about, I guess, about 2.5 hours from here. Two hours north. It's northeast of Parry Sound here in Ontario, and it's just all woods and lakes up there, right? It's God's country. So the first time I went there, he never had experienced Sasquatch activity ever, and that he was aware of, and especially even at his property, which is boat access only. And I go there the first time. There was another guy with us too. That guy was given a visual that night from his bunk there was a window right there where he was sleeping by his bunk, and he got woken up telepathically, told to look out the window, and he saw the silhouette of one. I think a younger, stocky one, stand there, and he got some fear, from that. And then in the morning, I was in my tent, but I got cold at one point, so I come in the morning early, and I crashed on the couch in the living room, and I got woken up with a telepathic, a loud whisper going, "Whoa," just, and my eyes just popped right open, and I knew instantly that Sasquatch. They just woke me up, so they're here on the property.
Wow.
Yeah, excuse me. And then since the property owner, he's had his another time when I was there, we're doing a meditation. We're doing the CE5 stuff, right? But we're doing a meditation, and I'm sitting outside on his deck, and he got his pant leg pulled. And at first, I think he said he thought it was me, right? It's like, well, I'm not even sitting close enough to reach over and do that. But and then his other pant leg got pulled, so he had that happen. And then we did a meditation. It was the last visit before he shut the cottage down for the winter last year, and it was just him and I there, and did a meditation. Then we go outside. I think he was about to set up a telescope, and right before that, this orange orb flying through the air. Just suddenly there's an orange orb in the sky coming towards us, and it was perfect conditions. And he's like, "What the hell's that?" And it flew right over top of us. As it came over top of us, it's dark. As it came over top of us, you could see behind this orb, there was a craft. You could see a hull. Couldn't make out details, but you could see that this was a ship.
Wow.
And we're holy shit, that's there's a ship attached to that. As soon as they knew that we saw that, they lit up the back end, and it was like, I think it was cigar shaped.
Right.
It might have been not totally cylindrical like that, but it was very elongated, maybe the length of a football field, maybe more. Perfectly silent, went right over top of us, and then over the trees, over a piece of the lake, and then it parked in the sky, looking like a star for about an hour. And we're watching this thing. We go back into the cottage, warm up a bit, come back out, and it's still there. And then it was gone. And so we called that. And then since he had this massive structure pop up at the back of his property, like a Sasquatch type structure. There were some others that came to visit there, and two of the ladies, two of the women that showed up, they stayed in the bedroom, and I remember the one saying to me, "I hope they don't slap the walls and scare me." And I just said out loud, joking, like, "Hey, you guys give the walls a slap, right?" And they didn't do that. But what the one person did experience was basically I guess a telepathic contact dream, or whatever you want to call it. And it was one of them stomping his foot, going like, "Bah," doing something like that.
Yeah.
And then she got a visual of him in the bedroom there.
Wow.
And then it was very real, right? And then the other one got a telepathic name in her mind spoken, which was the cabin owner's, one of his kids. And then after everybody left, and it was just the property owner there, they slapped the wall. And they scared the shit out of him, because it scared him, like, terrified him, actually. I laugh, kind of make fun of him, big bad cop,
Yeah.
scared of a slap in the wall by a Sasquatch. But it just, it's their humor, right? This is what they do. It's their humor. It's funny.
Right.
So it takes some getting used to. So I can understand the fear. I had to go through lots of fear myself, right?
Yeah.
But so the whole Sasquatch UFO thing, it's all connected.
Yeah. Right. I mean, you mentioned the fear thing. I think in comparison to where I hope things go with this topic, this is fairly light. I mean, I mean, I think you're really pioneering that kind of like contact with these people, and I think we're going to have to get used to it. So, like, we need to get over that fear element, right? I mean, I was just thinking, a lot of native tribes, a lot of native folklore and things like that, they openly spoke about these kind of beings and people. You know, particularly the Native Americans. I mean, I just recently did a little went on a little trip here in the UK. We have allegedly some in the Midlands area, you know, in the middle of England. And there's all these woods, and I went and just sort of like sussed it out a little bit, and we didn't have long enough to really delve too deeply into that. But there are accounts from the 1800s of people who lived in these woods, would meet the big people, big hairy people, and it's not talked about. It's not. It's like it's a forgotten reality that we should be having these experiences, and we should be working with these people. I mean, do you think that's where we're going? That it's just going to be normal?
Um, yeah, at some point, I figure, it's going to take time. Maybe not in our lifetime. I don't know. I don't know where we'll get, but maybe. I don't know. I don't have an answer except that they are reaching out, making contact with humans, right? This is something. This is they know what's going on in this world. Like their level of consciousness, there are no secrets.
Mm,
So they know what goes on behind closed doors with the bad guys, basically, that are
right.
causing all the destruction and detriment to this planet with the poisoning and all the atrocities going on. They they know who's doing what, basically, right? And I think this is why they are revealing their existence. Well, they see what's being done to us. We're they're committing genocide against us, right?
Mm,
With poison injections, and the Sasquatch know this, and they've given me drawings, even, right? Drew a human with a needle beside it and wrote "humans die sad."
wow.
They, so I think this is why we're in the midst of a reveal by their people, right? Because they want us to wake up. I think at one point, from what I gathered, is the same thing was almost done to them at one point, like tried to wipe them out. Whatever
Right.
demonic source or whatever it is, right? This is a fight against this. We're in a spiritual war here, right? This is a fight against good
Indeed.
and evil, like literally.
Right.
And so they know what's going on. And I'm so glad we have them. They're our allies, right? We have them on our side. They're on the good side. I get all the time people think, oh, they're Nephilim, they're, an offshoot. No, they're not.
No.
Not they've told me, no, we're not. We don't have any connection, no DNA, nothing, right? It's um I don't know what or who their creator is. They said that the Anunnaki created us.
Right.
They said the Anunnaki created humans. I asked them that, did the Anunnaki create humans? They said yes. Do you have the same creator as us? No. So that's all I've gotten from that, right?
Right.
Um, but yeah, they, like I said, they know what's going on in this world, and they want us to wake up. So it's a baby step process of integrating us with them, and making these connections, and they know the level of fear we have to deal with,
Yeah.
because we've all been conditioned to think that those other realms are, it's all demonic. There's a lot of, it's just very fear based, a lot of fear mongering put out. And I think that's all been done purposely to, keep us from truth, right? Sasquatch, I'm confident they know our true history. So
Mm.
they are a source of knowledge of actual truth, not the crap that's been shoved down our throats, right, from
Right.
day one.
Yeah. 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 Totally agree. Totally agree. And it's good to know that we've got allies, because sometimes certainly over the last sort of 5 years, it's been very difficult for many people going through this process of kind of waking up to many people who had no idea, like, just how bad things were, right? And I think it's no coincidence that people like yourselves and even the minor experiences I've had that this is happening because it's I believe it's a part of our heritage that we should be having these experiences. We should know who to deal with in nature, and I believe that there's more than Sasquatch around, right? I think there's
Oh yeah, I
elementals and
think yeah.
creatures. Yeah, have they ever have you ever had anything else like that, or have they ever communicated anything? Any other kind of beings that are around or anything?
Um, I've asked them about the dog man.
Oh
You know,
yeah,
I said, is the dog man your people and are they good? And they wrote no to both. So that, they're real. I remember there was a story Dwayne told me, him and his father witnessed it these things obviously came out of another dimension, but basically Thunderbirds, giant, massive 15-foot wingspan birds. And he said there was like 15 or 20 of these, and they flew over the bay when him and his dad were, whatever, tinkering around the property one day. And
right,
this is way back. I'm not sure how long ago, maybe could be between 2 and 3 decades ago. And it was a lot quieter up there then. But they were low. He said he figured they were probably only about 100 feet in the air and just absolutely massive. And it was the sound, the screeching sound that they were making that, scary, scary sound. And it's like, okay, well, that they came out of a dimensional wall, right? So that,
right.
and then, if you read about the Kentucky caves, goblins, there's all kinds of stuff going on, right?
Yes, right, right.
That are stepping into other dimensions or living underground or whatever it is. But definitely a lot more than just Sasquatch, I think.
Right, right, and I think we're going those things are also going to become more and more evident now. I think it's important that certainly for us we keep it with the benevolent kind, which I absolutely love the stories of the humorous things that the Sasquatch do with you and the funny, their sense of humor. And I remember there was one where live, like you were filming, and a snowball hit you, right? You released that one recently, and just the funny things that they do. You just like a snowball. It's like it came from the dark, and there's no there, or a human, should I say? And
That's happened a bunch of times now, actually. Like I think it was last visit even. We
wow,
got snow on the ground, and um, it was last year as well, where there's snowbanks at the side of this one lane road that Dwayne's cottage is on, and got hit with snow a couple times, and then suddenly you see these finger drag marks along the top of the snowbank, like 5, 6, 7 feet long. He just marking the snowbank, and last visit I got hit with snow. And then Dwayne saw where he pulled it, where he took the snow from. You could see what there was a little scoop on the ground there. And but the one time, yeah, we were um, measuring the big guy's footprint that just showed up, 21 inches. He came in, he left one single print, and I love when they do that, like absolutely huge. And at the same time, Nin Yannon left his. So father and maybe younger son. And so, while I'm documenting those prints, that's when I got hit with that snow. My video's camera is running, and then you hear him give like a little laugh sound, capture the audio on the audio portion. While I'm videotaping, you hear his voice right beside me. So that was it's always nice to get pieces like that, right? That show
yeah.
that, capture them in real time, right?
Yeah, yeah, no, that's amazing, and I remember what they've actually playfully hurt you as well. Like, have they thrown a marble and actually really hurt your head? I think I've seen that
Oh,
before.
I took a large marble off the skull once. Yeah. Oh, one time way back in 2013, I remember the mosquitoes were really bad, and Dwayne's walking around the woods, and I'm in my tent pumping up an air mattress. So my head's bobbing up and down at the top of the tent as I'm, using this manual foot pump
Mm.
pump up an air mattress. And I had a video camera pointing into the woods, not at my tent. And then you hear a tree limb break. You hear it crack, and then it hits my head hard, but so fast. It was just like crack, whack. It was like instant. So it didn't break and fall from the tree. It was just too
Yeah.
fast, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, that hurt, and I yelled out, and Dwayne's like, "What?" And he's calling from the distance.
Mm.
And I basically tell him, I just got hit in the head hard, man. I said, like, ow, like, ow, man, that
Mm.
freaking hurt, dude. Don't do that, right? It's never happened again, but it's like it doesn't know his own strength. It's like, chill out, dude. Like
Yeah.
so sometimes, yeah,
Uh,
I've taken a few lumps over the years, but there's never any malevolence. There's never any intent to harm me. So
of course, yeah, yeah. No, that's amazing, and I think something that amazes me as well is obviously the sheer strength that they have, the capacity that they could to do to harm, but they don't. I mean, I remember that video as well of a tree breaking, like a full trunk, and you hear the cracking. I think you're recording, and you hear the cracking
yeah.
of the tree in the distance, and then woof, you hear the tree fall. Like, a wow! I mean, what strength that must be. But why would they do that? Do you think?
I don't know. That happened about 10:30 at night. I was by myself. It was dead still night. And you hear the roots snapping as that tree's getting pushed over. And it's being pushed. Like I've recorded that several times. I've had that happen around me quite a few times in different locations over the years, right? I've
Yeah.
recorded it a few times as well. And um, why they do that or why they did that one, I don't know. Maybe they were scaring something off for all I know, or maybe they were just
Mm.
having fun, or you know, um, people wonder, well, why do they destroy the forest like that? They don't
Mm.
destroy the forest. It's, if anything, take a look at the human side of things, right? We're the destructive ones. They're not clear cutting big swaths of
Acres and acres of
old growth
trees. Yeah.
forest, right? If a tree gets pushed over here and there, big deal, right?
Yeah. Right. And it's their home as well at the end of the day. I mean, obviously, it's our home as well. Um, and do you think is a tough question? Do you think there's any genetic connection with them with humans and Sasquatch? Now, I've heard we banded around. I'd love to get your take on it. Do you think?
Yes,
Okay.
100%.
Okay. Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Some humans have Sasquatch DNA, not all humans, because I asked if I did, and I don't.
Right.
They told me something else, but I'm not getting into that. Not yet. um, but some humans do have their DNA. So um, my thought is probably the Anunnaki took them and
Mm.
whatever else manipulated their DNA to create humans. If we have some of their DNA in us, right? Some of us, but definitely, yeah. From what I've gathered, from what Neff's family have told me, right? And these, like I've developed written communication over the years, so I've gotten a lot of questions in. A lot of questions don't get answered. Some nights they don't answer anything.
Mhm.
Some nights they'll answer a bunch, or some nights one, two. And I tend to ask some controversial questions.
Mhm.
A lot of people are brainwashed about the whole, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. It's like, no, I'm a critical thinker.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all. That's what I am.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to ignore big questions that, um, you know, pertain to something that might be true, like weather manipulation, or are bad humans, manipulating the weather to harm us? And they said yes.
Hmm.
Are they using CERN to unleash demons into this world?
Yeah.
Yes.
Open portals. Yeah,
They
and
know
you
all
got a
about
yes on that.
CERN.
Yeah.
They know all about this stuff. They know what's going on in this world. Like I said, there's no secrets with them, right? So,
Mm. Mm.
and again, that brings us back to why there's so much activity. It's progressed over the years, and they are in the midst of a reveal, and it is
Mm.
because of what's being done to, the human race and the earth, right?
Some people might um, be watching this and be like, I want to make contact. I want to go and experience this for myself. First and foremost, would you advise that? And secondly, if so, what advice would you give to people who may want to kind of start engaging themselves?
Yeah, sure. Like I said, it can be scary. You go into the woods and you hear a big tree limb break on a dead still night and only a few feet away. Your hearts might skip a beat, but go in with good intention. You know, you got to have good intention towards them. If you don't,
Right.
um, you'll either get nothing, or maybe they'll scare the hell out of you. Maybe they'll run you out of the woods. Maybe they'll just make you leave, like they did to me way back, and I didn't even know what was going on. There was no fear
Right.
there. They just made me leave.
Right.
Because my goal was to get the photograph of a lifetime, right? But you go in with good intentions, bring a gift even. Talk to the woods, talk to them, and talk to them like a friend, as if they're standing right there listening to you. I do that all the time, right? At first, it might feel a little weird, um, but there's a good chance that they're listening. And so, yeah, go in with good intentions, speak to them.
Yeah.
They understand us. They understand all language. That's what Neff's family told me, right?
Yeah.
It's through energy. They understand words, and through energy, and that they gave me that experience once, actually, when they gave me an experience back in 2013, with that. Soon your people will know. There were no words spoken. I felt them, right? And
Yeah.
there's a clarity that comes with it. It's undeniable, right?
Mm.
There's no question. There's no doubt. So, that they have. Just keep an open mind, um, because they can do things that most people would say is impossible, and it's just absolutely mind blowing what they can do, right? You could, pat your head and say, "Hey, can you touch me?" You could ask that. I used to do
Right.
that often, right? And then I still do, right? Because I enjoy when that happens. Actually, last winter, I asked them at one point, "Can you guys give me a hug?" And I was outside at one point, and I got hugged from behind. It wasn't long, but it was definitely, I got a quick hug from behind, right? Come
Wow.
up behind me and give me a little squeeze, and then let go. And I was like, holy shit, I just got hugged, man. So,
That's amazing. So we're coming to a close now, but I've heard of stories of bad encounters. Now, whether it's true or not, I don't know. I mean, like everything, like there is so much misinformation and disinformation, and that's kind of like the job of the three-letter agencies, right? They come in and they don't deny it; they just feed misinformation and disinformation. So I have heard stories where people have had not very nice experiences. Times when it was almost violent, and they were chased off or pushed away and all this kind of stuff. Do you think that's possible? If you mean with a negative intention, they will deal with you. Do you think that that's the case?
well, I think it's entirely possible. They they would know us, basically our intention when we're going into the woods. They would know if we're good or bad people. They would know that. And so I would think some humans, and I would think, because of what humans are doing to the earth and that, I would think that some of them, and this is just my opinion, some of them probably can't stand humans, right?
Aye.
I would also assume that they have laws among their people about harming us. There's probably serious consequences, for killing a human.
Mm.
I'm just speculating here, but it only makes sense because they I could see them running some people out of the woods, or throwing rocks at them or whatever. And some people that might get chased out of the woods or have a seemingly violent encounter, but walk away basically unharmed.
Mm.
I think it's more of a scare tactic, right? And they could scare the hell out of anybody
Right.
very easily, right?
Mm.
So, but if you're coming out of the woods and got run out by them and and you're unscathed, well, they could easily snap your neck, no problem if they wanted, right?
Yeah.
Walk right up to you. You wouldn't even know they're standing there, and
Yeah. Yeah.
they could do whatever they want, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
I tend to think that probably some of them don't like us.
Mm.
I don't.
Getting-
Like,
No, no.
some humans. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said to you, yeah, yeah. Like I said before, I watched this documentary once, I messaged you actually after I watched it because it was just like, what are they doing? Like they went out with camo gear on and like create in a military with the rifles. And we want to bring back that body of a Sasquatch, and it's like they have no idea what they're dealing with. They have no clue what they're doing.
No.
Clearly, like you said, these guys could be right in front of the rifle, and they wouldn't even see him. It was just such consciousness to me. Like, why would you even want to do that?
Yeah, like some people are pro kill. Oh, we need a body for science. It's like, no, you don't. We know they exist.
Yeah,
Enough with that crap. You're not like that's just wanting to murder, basically. They are people, right? So, um, thankfully, their abilities allow them to see it coming, before it happens, basically, right? So,
yeah,
I don't. Like I was told by Ness family, they are hunted by military. There are people in power that want them wiped out. They're a threat. They expand human consciousness. So, and we're in the midst of a war on consciousness. So they are a threat to the bad side because of their abilities, their knowledge. So this is basically why they hide. They stay hidden in another dimension. They step into this realm, but for the most part, I think they are hidden in another layer frequency or another realm, whatever. They gave me a drawing once. Took a while to figure out. I think years. I don't know. I can't remember how many years, but they drew this face with horns, and it wasn't. It had an unhappy look on its face, and then they drew the Earth, and then a line connecting to like another Earth or another reality or frequency or whatever, and it was basically broke it down to, oh, okay, so they hide in this other dimension, and this evil can't get to them there, so you know
interesting.
that's why the unhappy face on the demonic face they drew, right? So they're safe where they are.
We're scratching the surface on this topic, like we really are, and I'm excited to how far it's going to go, and about it. And Hollywood and the mainstream have ridiculed the idea, um, and anybody that talks about this in the mainstream, it's like a joke, and I think that needs to stop. And I think there's going to be great evidence coming out of these things. I mean, the whole Paterson Gimlin footage, which I actually have as a part of the intro to my podcast. Where can people find you? Obviously, you've got your YouTube channel. Where can people contact you if they want to talk to you or anything like that, or any advice?
Yeah, you know, uh, well, I have Sasquatch Ontario on YouTube, and it's probably, I would say, probably the most advanced channel on the subject, considering the supporting evidence that I've accumulated over the years that they've given me, right? They know I'm recording, they know I'm documenting, they know everything I'm doing, and they keep showing up and keep giving, and um, and then with all the interactions and the questions, the communication developed over the years, and it's a very, very advanced situation. Indoors with us every visit, basically that sort of thing. So people, like I said, you can contact me through, or I got my YouTube channel. Go check that out. My email is sasquatchontario@yahoo.ca for Canada. people can reach me there. I'm on Facebook too under Mike Paterson, 1T in Paterson. Um,
Yep.
and yeah, it's
Love to
been
know
doing
if
this a
you
while, and
you have,
it
yeah,
feels very natural to me, at this point.
yeah,
It's like this is my path in life, right? It took a while
absolutely.
to get here, but
No, that's fantastic. I mean, have you ever considered writing a book about your experiences and get it documented in writing? Is that something
you
you'd be
know,
interested in?
Craig, I started writing way, way back. And I remember I wrote about 80 pages, and then, because there was some negative stuff going on at the time, so I was coming from a negative place, right? So I
Mm,
threw it in the garbage. I started again, and I wrote and I shelved it. Been sitting on the shelf for years. I have actually everything right here set up in another computer.
mm.
I'm hoping to have something published by um, my goal is April. So I'm getting there. I'm close.
That's that's great.
So and I took notes back in when this all started. So how I stopped taking notes long, long, long time ago
Yeah.
because it just got to be too much. I couldn't keep on top, and I wanted to enjoy my time there, right?
Mm.
But I retain a lot of the information. Probably forget a lot of the information. But back then, how it all started and progressed and unfolded, I did take you know quite a few notes of how it was unfolding, right from the beginning. So there's that, which is great that I did that back then. So yeah, I have been writing, and like I said, I plan to have something published. Definitely, I don't, I'm not sure when. My goal is the spring, but definitely in 2026 I'll have something published.
Fantastic. I'll look forward to it. Well, like I say, all the best to you, Mike. And I'm keen subscribers. I watch all the stuff that you put out. And in fact, actually, I think it was just today or yesterday, depending on the time zone, you shared some pictures that just random electronic pictures. Sorry, you were talking about how they affect electronics in your Facebook post. And some of those were just astounding, like close up of the eyes. That was just like, wow. And did I see one that had a blue eye? Did I pick that up right?
Oh yeah, yeah, Blue Eye, yeah. I put those out in 2013,
Okay,
and I took a lot of flack for, you know,
right,
it wasn't the right time, I guess, right
right.
back then. Even though I didn't care, I just like it's real. It's hey, this is there's no lies here. There's no embellishment. It's the truth of what's happening. I going through my notes. I remember I said in my notes at one point, I got it was up to 40 images in one night.
Wow.
So
And
I
that's just them
think
playing with the electronics, is that right? Playing with your phone.
yeah. So how that started was they they put an image on a camera. It just, like, where'd this come from? So I ended up buying them a point and shoot camera to play with. And it started outside, and everything now is done indoors. It's all on the kitchen table, the camera, video camera, sketch pad, chalkboard, whatever. I got to get a new chalkboard, but I put the stuff on the kitchen table. I gift at the end of the kitchen counter. I don't even gift outside at this
Mm,
point. It's all done indoors, right? I,
right.
I buy Neff beer. Oh, he takes it every time. I'm buying magic mushrooms for Ninyanin. I probably dosed him about close to 2 dozen times. He takes them every time. He loves them. That happened by mistake, but and then I give so basically my gifts for a while now have been a couple beers for Neff, the magic mushrooms, I'm out of those. Uh, some organic fresh garlic bulbs, and because they gifted me garlic once, because I got psoriasis, right? So sometimes it's they gave me the garlic to try and help my condition. Here, take this. So I give them garlic, and in the last couple times I've also thrown in some organic ginger, and then a bag of like dark chocolates for the kids. They
Wow.
take everything.
Wow.
They take everything. So
That's
we had
amazing.
one thing happen last winter, which was wild. sitting at the kitchen table like we always do, certain point in the night we'll crack a beer and sit there and just have discussion all night, Dwayne and myself. And so I'm facing the window that's looking outside. He's at the end of the table so he can see the whole kitchen, right? End of the kitchen counter, down at the end of the kitchen. That's where I leave my gifts. And I remember Dwayne's eyes going wide one night, and there was uh, I can't remember if it was one or two big 750 ml glass bottles of premium beer, with a champagne twist top thing on them, and
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
sitting there waiting, and his eyes go wide, and he goes, "I just saw Neff, like not fully," and I look, and the beer was there, and then as soon as that happened, it's gone. Bottle's gone, right?
Wow.
Taken into another
Wow.
dimension. Oh, they've gone into the fridge, and it's Dwayne used to buy pepperonis. The packages, I remember they started disappearing, and Dwayne's like, did you eat some of my pepperonis? I said, no, I haven't touched them. Well, I could have sworn there was more in here. And then I started counting them, and they were disappearing. And then one visit, he brought some. The package was still sealed, hadn't been opened yet, and I counted them. I counted them a few times to make sure.
Yeah.
Okay, there's like 18 or whatever it was in there. And I kept counting them, and the number was going down. The package hadn't even been opened yet. I brought a pie once. They didn't touch the pie. So it's like, okay, well, I'm not wasting this. Cut into it. There's a marble inside. Um,
Wow.
yeah, yeah, like stuff like this. Or another time, I gave him some of my homemade pickles. Didn't eat it, but good pickles too. And so I'm sitting at the kitchen table. I got a almost empty beer in front of me. I turn my head just for a second, look back, go to take a drink of my beer. Ah, tastes weird. I had to cut the can open. It was four or five bite-sized chunks of pickle in there that happened just like that. They're not pushing them in from the top.
No.
They just manifest them inside, right?
Right.
Or
Right.
a bottle of what do you call it? Saline solution for contact lenses.
Yeah.
Those are sealed.
Mhm.
The top does come out, but you can't pull it
Yeah. Yeah. You have to
from
break it
outside.
open.
You
Yeah.
have to cut it open, and that's when I realized, okay, I can pop the top out from the inside, right? Um, but it wasn't tampered with, and they ended up putting this little piece of this little kid's toy inside one. I cut it open. I showed it on camera. Dwayne held the camera while I cut this thing open, and then showed it. Hey, they manifested something inside there, right? So they can do this. Um, they could probably put a marble in your ass if they wanted to, kind of thing, right? They can manifest things in. They gave me a photograph once of that point and shoot camera,
Mhm.
and they put an image on the camera that's showing the internal shutter of the camera. It's impossible.
Right.
You
Right.
can't you can't look in from the front or the viewfinder or and see this. It's like, how the hell did they do that? And so it's just constant crazy
Just
fun.
playing and just constantly letting you know they're there. That's amazing. That's
Always doing weird, funny, crazy stuff like that. Yeah.
amazing. Mike, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on, and I could sit and listen to you for hours. I mean, I think it's a really really amazing topic. I love the sort of high vibe you've got with it all, and there's no, I know there's the element of fear, but it's like the fun, and it's exciting, and I think there's a lot more to come as well. And obviously, you're going to keep us updated on the channel. I encourage everybody to subscribe and keep watch and see what comes of it. But Mike, thank you very much for joining me on my show. I really appreciate your time, and I hope to speak to you again soon.
Yeah, my pleasure. I just say too, like once you get past the fear, it's just a whole other experience.
Right,
It's
right.
amazing. It's
So work on the
All
fear. I
right.
mean, that's a lesson in life. Work on the fear. Get rid of it.
Yeah,
Excellent.
it takes some getting used to, right? But
Yeah, of course it does. Of course, yeah. But what an
and
experience.
this is why I do this too. This is why I put this stuff out to help people, hopefully help alleviate some of that fear of people going into this, right? So
Right, right. And again, as in experience, they'll communicate in a way that doesn't scare you, but you know it's them. Like I think they do have a sensitivity to that. Like you said, they know how we operate, they know how we function. It just
that,
said
and one
it's
more
supposed to get
thing,
that.
Craig, sorry. They know what we focus
Go
on,
on.
and they'll use that
Yeah.
knowledge to put something right in front of your face where they know you're going to see it. And you'll know when it happens because, it might be something that you were looking for. And, oh, I could have sworn I looked there 5 times, or I looked there 5 times and it wasn't there, and suddenly it's there. They'll do
Right,
stuff like that,
right.
right? So very paranormal, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, amazing. I just keep going and keep doing what you're doing. And I'd have you on again. I'd love to. Anything else that develops, let me know. We'll do it again. And for now, I'll say goodbye and thank you for joining me. Thanks so much.
all right. Thanks. My pleasure.
Thank you.